Um, hey, this is Dylan Fry, the real estate guy, here to be your guy for any real estate needs in the Kansas City area. Today, we have one of our Everyone Needs a Guy interviews. That way, you know, when you're moving to the Kansas City area, whether it's on the Missouri side or the Kansas side, you have somebody to help you with that transition. Today, we have the title guy. We have TJ Lorson with Heartland Title. He's going to talk about what it is what title insurance is there for, what title policies do for you. Also going to tell some stories, talk about some do's and some don'ts, really get into it and how you can make the transition to Missouri or Kansas a lot better and make sure that your title policy actually protects your purchase. Again, we're with TJ Lorson. We're going to get into it. He's going to talk about who he is and a little bit more about himself. Let's get into it. TJ, tell us a little bit about how you got into title policies and stuff.
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Dylan. What's the name of it again?
Everyone Needs a Guy.
Everyone Needs a Guy. I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my name's TJ Lorson. How I got into title insurance. My dad actually started Heartland Title when I was 15.
Yeah.
He's been doing it since, 35 years. He actually retires here coming up in April of 2024. But, I've been around it. My mom was a mortgage insurance broker, or was a mortgage broker growing up as well. She owned her own mortgage company. And then, obviously I went to college and whatnot, and went and got my accounting degree from Washington University, and then worked in Denver, Colorado for a while. That's what I was saying, downtown Denver. Yeah. And then, kind of fell back into title insurance with my dad. One of his key employees quit and went to a different title company, and boom, that's all she wrote. 12, 13 years later, here I am, kind of. So that's how I got into it.
So now, with your dad retiring, are you stepping into those shoes? You taking it over?
We just planned a sabbatical for him, which is July 31st to August, whatever that one's. Yeah, July 31st to, how many days are in August? 9/1. So basically, he'll be gone for a month.
Yeah. No
contact with him, to kind of force our hand as a company.
Test the waters.
Right. Yeah, and it's more day-to-day bills and payroll and things like that, that I don't do on hand. I have an accounting degree. It's not out of my ability level. It's a matter of just getting me out of closings and, you would say, micromanaging staff. Well, I would say that, just being a hands-on with closings and bookings and little stuff like that I oversee right now, if that makes sense.
And that's one of the things with business in general. In viewers of the show, if they watch this a lot, they know my background's in insurance. I own a few different insurance agencies, and it is different when you go from working in the business to owning and running the business. It's a harder transition. You don't really understand everything they're doing on a day-to-day, so be prepared. That gets a little bit crazy. You have things pop up that you would never think will pop up too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a misquote me, Michael Gerber, I think. Why most small business fail and what to do about it. I think it's Michael Gerber. But definitely, I've been raised as a technician. Title and closing. Those are my strengths. That's my skill set. I've been doing for 10 years. Working in the business, they say in the book, and then then kind of stepping back and running it from outside. Just really requires checklists, man. Checklists and putting procedures in place. We were kind of talking about that, and videos. So it's not like I still got a couple months, and I've got a majority of it done. Where it's just a matter of Jesus, take the wheel now. Let it go. You know what I mean? And just see how they're going to fail, and it's just the way it is sometimes.
Well,
so growing pains.
It's one of those things, just from talking with you, the bit that we have is you are taking every step that you can to be prepared for that transition and to make sure that you're even overly prepared. And if you're going to run a business and you come up with everything that it could fail-wise or new training processes, it's huge. It helps everybody operate better, and you're going to realize like some of those don't work, and then you're going to have to change things up a little bit more.
Yeah, and we'll go kind of in title search. We'll just kind of start from the get-go. Like when you get a contract, right, the seller has to have marital status on a contract, right? For Kansas, it's called dower and courtesy rights. Great. And essentially it's a little bit different law in the state of Missouri, but it's essentially the same, one to buy, two to sell. Like I said, Missouri's law is a little bit different. I'd have to look it up in the book, but definitely Correct. Kansas, one to buy, two to sell. That's a big thing. First thing in a contract, just most people don't know that. That's just ingrained in my brain like crazy, So it's just after that, I guess kind of go into your questions about more the technical side because that's why we're here today, right?
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about what title policy should be doing. So when people are looking at it, I know a lot of people don't even – they should read all their paperwork, but some people just don't take too much into it. They think, hey, I've got this title company that's doing all this paperwork, and it's always correct. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about what the steps are that you think everybody should go through when they're purchasing a property.
First thing is I would say, something my dad's always said since I started was we are in the perfection business. We're in the business of, picking fly crap out of pepper, if that makes any sense to you. So we are in the perfection business. Paperwork matters, making sure that easements are on the title commitment, making sure you have marital status of sellers, making sure buyers' names are spelled right. Clerical errors are a really important part of our business just because of that high standard of things. Legal descriptions, literally, mortgages can get placed on the wrong property because of a 7, it should have been a 5 on a mortgage. You know what I mean? Like a legal description. So that answers your question, I guess. Details of it.
To further that even more, the legal descriptions, and you should review them even when you're purchasing the property. Make sure that it matches the contract. I specifically had a contract that we wrote it up. It went to the title company correct. Then there was an amendment that something happened and it got messed up. And the title search had the correct property descriptions on it, but where they got the title search from, where they did the research from, didn't actually give them the full report, left off one of the lots. And so then 6 months later, we found out one of the lots didn't get transferred.
Right. And the way you describe that's a little different than the way I see it as a title person, right? So let's say we look up 1532 Medford, right? That's my old house in Topeka.
Yeah.
You look up that house and there's a big lot next to it, right?
Correct.
And in some counties, what they do is they don't combine those lots into one tax ID, right? So you're dealing with the realtor, you put together a contract, you put 1532 Medford on there, boom, bam, I got a deal. Thanks for letting me sell your house, DJ, right? But what you didn't do is you didn't add that additional parcel ID. You didn't bring it up on the GSI map and make sure you put that extra parcel ID on the contract.
Correct.
So that's probably more what happened on that situation.
That is, yes.
That happens a lot.
The weird thing was it was correct exactly how you're
Neighboring
saying. It had a separate parcel number and everything there. Just somehow because we went back and looked at everything, and what happened was the seller got a tax paper saying, hey, you owe taxes on this other lot. We went back and looked at it, and it was on all the paperwork initially, and then we just missed it on the back end.
Right.
That it wasn't.
Did the title company go pay for it?
Yeah.
I've done that a couple times.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
It was one of those.
And it's one of those things where who's liable, right? Is the realtor liable? Is the title company liable? It's so much that it's on our title search. Like when we do a title search, one of the check marks or things they're supposed to do is see if anything is contiguous to the property being sold. And if it is contiguous, we're supposed to reach out to the realtor and confirm that property is not part of the sale.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot in for sale by owners. Good old buddy deals like, hey, I'm going to sell it to Bill. And they have no idea that's 2 different parcel IDs. And they just say, I own the whole quarter or this quarter. And it's like, okay.
Well,
they're just not informed.
Oddly, that was the situation. It was a for sale by owner.
Was it? There you go.
And,
yeah.
And
it's like I can read into a title ball, right?
Oh, that's
a
why
crystal
I
ball.
To bring you on here. Is just the different stories that you can bring with that. What are the craziest things you've seen happen?
Wire fraud is a huge thing in our industry. I think that's, I talk to car guys are big into this too, that, they think everything's going to go digital and, we're not going to have do in-person stuff anymore. And I just think the smarter that criminals get, the more it keeps us having a job as far as face-to-face encounters, and I do think that eventually it's going to be online. They're going to figure out some kind of technology, but we're so far away from that. I think in the big metropolitans where the counties have quite a bit of money, I think that will be one. But as far as wire fraud and, impersonation of people, that's always going to be a game. That's always going to be game for fraudsters and people trying to defraud other people. And that's kind of what we protect from that, you know, so that.
So what steps do you guys have, or what would you advise people to keep them from being a victim of wire fraud?
Well, the big one that I saw that was really interesting that I think is very unique is, you know, we had a seller that was turning around and buying, right? And the seller needed to know how much money they were going to get back from the sale, right? So when you go buy a home, a lot of times in order to qualify for the loan to turn around and buy, you need to know what you're getting back from the sale of your home, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that LO and the processor was all over my closer in Manhattan to get that done. You know, hey, I need seller proceeds amount, get us a seller side, yada, yada, right? So that processor went ahead and, you know, jumped the horse, so to speak, and got the payoff for that seller so they could get them approved, right?
Yes.
And it was a bank out of Texas. I can't remember exactly what bank it was or who the loan processor worked for, but somehow between the loan processor ordering the payoff and it getting sent to my closer in Manhattan, it got augmented, the wire instructions on the payoff, right? So I can't remember. It was U.S. Bank is where it got sent, and it said payoff clearing account, right? But somehow, you know, we don't know what happened. We have no idea how the loan processor got a payoff. The wire instructions got changed on the payoff, so much so that you really could not tell that they'd been augmented. And then we sent the wire, right? And the only tip-off we got was because some guy went to U.S. Bank and tried to withdraw the whole amount.
Oh, my God.
The same day that it hit, right? So they didn't let him do that, so they only let him take out $7,000, right? So guess who got hold of the cake with the $7,000? We did, right? So, I mean, that's just, you know, so there's certain things you can do. You know, we don't, you know, you just try to, we have to be in control of ordering that payoff. You know what I mean? Fill out a form and we order it for you. We know right when it's coming. We have a list of approved payoff, routing numbers and account numbers. You know, if it's not on the list, then it doesn't make, we got to call and verify everything. Does that make, you know what I mean?
Correct. Yeah. And that's one of those things where I talk to a lot of people, whether they're buying and selling their homes, and even from the insurance side, back I was doing that, or insuring properties and different stuff. There's so much stuff when you're actually in the business that you don't realize goes into the business. Because even with everything we do, what you're talking about there, I'm thinking, oh, ordering a payoff super easy. It's, you get that, boom, it's back to you guys. You review it. Hey, it looks good. But you're right. Like one section of it could be wrong in the wiring instructions, and then boom, now all that money's off the table.
I mean, it's a little over my head. I'm not a computer person, but you know, fax can be tampered with, emails can be tampered with. Everything is up in the air as far as security. You know what I mean? So I mean, there's some dangerous people out there as far as that kind of stuff, and I'm a firm believer in those people should be watched by the government because they're just too dangerous with what they know how to do with computers. I mean, that's just me, but I bet that's out there. I bet it's out there. I bet there's some guys that just know too much.
A lot of TV shows go into it about how those guys end up working for the government because
I'm sure
that's where they best fit. If sure. Taking care of that. Okay, so what things would you advise people not to do if they're in a purchase and they're getting asked for title instructions? How do you ask them for that information? Like,
well, first, Dylan, this is a plug to you. You got to use Dylan if you're going to buy or sell, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
But no, honestly, get some people that are professionals. You know, I think one of the biggest things you can do is try to buy or sell for sale by owner. And, you know, in the grand scheme of things, if you're buying a house, it's, you know, 6 or 7%. I know you might think it's a big number, but there's a lot more things that can go wrong than 6 or 7%. You know what I mean? So that's number one, is get some people that know what they're doing. And, you know, that's big number one. Big number two would be, especially when you're buying, especially in this market, make sure you go get approval with a lender. You know, go get a pre-approval letter. If you're a good realtor and the realtor doesn't want to take you to a house because you don't have a pre-approval letter, they're not discriminating against you. They have a family to feed. They have livelihood. Don't waste their time. You know, that's number two. Number three is if you don't buy or sell homes for a living and you try to tell a realtor how to value a house, right? I've always thought it's curious, then go get an appraisal. If you know more than the realtor, right? Go get an appraisal. And I know that's kind of weird, right? You never heard that, but you're going to hear that more as the market gets kind of crazy. I've heard of realtors, getting an appraisal just to, put a seller kind of in their spot where they're like, hey, this is what it's worth.
Well, because now they have to disclose that too. And that's one of the things that if there is a discrepancy in price and they're willing to pay for an appraisal, then yeah, get it. Because one of the things that we've had to face over the last few years is everything's gone up so fast, and everybody's been willing to pay more than what people are saying it's worth, even though they're looking at the last previous sales and even trying to beat it a little bit, and it's still going over. And that's what it was for the last 3 years. Now people are seeing it come back to reality, and houses aren't appreciating the same way they were. They're just staying flat.
Right. And the interest rate does its job doing that, because interest rate goes up, the value you would think goes up, but actually goes down because interest rate goes down, goes up. So, it just doesn't make – it's all about people's payments sometimes, so.
Yeah. Well, and I talked to multiple people that bought in the last 3 years with the lower interest rates that are paying the same amount as people buying lesser houses right now. And it's not close. Like it's, they bought a $300,000 house a year ago or 2 years ago, and they're paying, and somebody buying a $300,000 house today is paying $800 more.
Is that what it is? Okay. Because you look at that more than I do. Yeah.
Just rough numbers, that plays into it. And then it comes into when you are looking at buyers and sellers, and for sale by owner, there's a price that they're expecting you to give a discount, because they know you're not having to pay that 5, 6, 7%, whatever it is that you're paying. They just expect, you're going to cut me some kind of deal on it. And so those things play into it. And then you just don't have the amount of buyers in the market right now that there was 2 and 3 years ago.
Right.
So it all changed.
So to circle back with, I kind of answered like general real estate advice, didn't I? As far as title insurance goes, make sure you have a reputable company. Your real estate agent is comfortable with that title insurance company. There's not as many fly-by-night title companies as there used to be. Like when I first started, like people were just like, oh, me and a realtor that does a bunch of houses will start this title company. They had no idea what they're doing. I don't think you're ever going to see that again, just from the standpoint where the market is and how hard it is.
What led to those kind of going away?
Regulation, TRID.
That's normally what it does.
Yeah, I mean, you need to know what you're doing. You got to have, and underwriters just aren't willing to take the risk either. I get a lot of questions like, how do you start a title company, or how's that happen? And it's just not like it's called nepotism. That's how it happened. Family business, or you buy somebody out. Or you have to have just some kind of idea how the business works, or.
You've got to have a long history in it, and
you got to be a technician of it.
Rightfully so. You want people that are actually know what they're doing if they're handling. This is the biggest purchase in most people's lives, is buying or selling a home. You want to make sure it's done right. You want to make sure the entire chain of title is there so that they don't have issues come up in the future.
No, I don't want to. I'm going to watch what I say here.
Okay.
But there was a title company that had a breach. About 6 or 7 months ago. And in other countries, you're supposed to disclose what happens during that breach, right? So how did they get in? Did they infiltrate information or anything like that? No disclosure.
Correct.
Nothing got released on that. Nothing. We don't know anything. Don't know what happened. And, that'll change our industry. I mean, there's no law enforcing it, so it's not like it's illegal. It's just that it's not very heard of. Banks share that information, those kinds of things. I forgot what my computer guy said. There is some kind of law out there for that, but don't quote me. So,
it should be out there. If your information is getting broken into, and there's a lot of information that title companies have.
Right, and it's a difference between encrypting and actually infiltrating information. All these ransom viruses, right? People get hit with these ransom viruses where they encrypt all your stuff and you don't get access unless they give you a password. In order to get a password, you got to pay a ransom. Right?
Correct.
That's a little different than, okay, I got in there, took your information, downloaded it, sold it, did whatever with it. You know what I mean? But I don't know. That'll be a big thing. That's already a costly thing for us. I mean, insurance is expensive, man. Computers are expensive. The largest asset, the largest overhead item we have, for sure.
Oh, definitely.
healthcare for our employees.
Well, and I worked for one of the biggest insurance companies out there, and that was one of our big things.
State Farm?
Well,
Was it?
Yeah, it
Say
was.
what? Okay.
Yeah, and that was one of our biggest things was that we had to have everything. We had so much information on everybody. They had so much information on everybody that the own internet, and you had to go through special avenues to log into every computer and make sure it's done correctly so that you didn't have any of those breaches.
Yeah.
Because, and that's just cybersecurity in general. Make sure you're not giving out, if somebody emails you for wiring instructions or anything like that, just don't send it back to them. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. Make sure you talk to somebody and get it. I do agree with you that keeps you guys some business security and job security, because I would rather talk to somebody or deliver that in person or however, so that I don't end up in that situation, because that is any kind of wire fraud is huge right now going on in the world. So let's talk a little bit about the actual title process. So what goes into a title search?
There's 7 types of searches, I believe. It's legal, name, court search in the district court, bankruptcy, federal, taxes, and then business entity. There you go. I had that on my hand, right on the top of my brain, right?
There you go.
Obviously, business entity doesn't really apply if the seller's not a business entity. Those 7 searches is basically what we do on every seller. So when I say name, literally Jane Doe, search by Jane Doe in the county records, and then John Doe by the county records, their name if they're two people that are married. And then legal search by how the property is legally described, lot and block, or section township range. It's called meetings, bounds, or platted ground. County courts, you search by their name as well. You're looking for any kind of judgments attached to property. Anything that's Chapter 60 or Chapter 61. I'm dyslexic, always forget. It's horrible of me. But if it's filed under a certain type, the judgment gets filed under a certain chapter, it attaches to real property, and I always forget. It's Chapter 60 or Chapter 61. If that attaches, then we have to make sure that gets paid. Real estate property taxes, obviously, we search. And then business entity, if, we had a seller the other day that said, I shut down this corporation 2 years ago. Well, you and the corporation are entitled together, so you're going to have to sign out of the corporation. It was really hard for him to understand that. But those are the 7 types of searches that we do on each seller.
Nice. And then once you have that information, then for somebody that's a complete novice to that, what are you giving to them?
We prepare what's called a title insurance commitment, right? So you'll have a lender's policy, okay, and an owner's policy that we are committing to issue. So it's called a title commitment, right, to
Correct.
issue either an owner's policy, which insures the buyer, right, or a lender's policy that insures the lender, right? So typically what you see is the seller will pay for the owner's policy because it ensures the buyer good title to property, okay, and then the buyer will purchase the lender's policy, and that ensures the lender has good title to property if they have to foreclose, okay? A little thing called perfecting the lien for the lender, so they can first in line, first in time, so they can foreclose on the property. Deed of trust in the state of Missouri, not mortgage, essentially works the same thing. A little bit faster laws to foreclose, quote unquote, on people in Missouri than Kansas. So you're issuing a title insurance commitment. On that commitment, you'll have a Schedule B2, and that's where your requirements come in, right? In order to issue a title commitment, this is really fun stuff. It's kind of boring, but I mean, it's what I do for a living. You execute and record a mortgage or a deed from the seller to the buyer, right? Yeah. Execute and record a mortgage in favor of the buyer, in favor of the lender that they're using. Normally, it's a normal title commitment. Release the prior lien on the property, which is the mortgage. Make sure tax get paid. Make sure HOA gets paid. That's a normal title commitment. 90% of commitments are like that.
Yeah.
Right?
And they're pretty cut and dry. You can walk through them if you get used to looking at them and know what you're looking for.
Always the funky requirements, always death, right? Probate, divorce, any kind of state liens, tax liens, survey situations, borrowers using additional collateral to purchase,
Easements, other stuff.
easements. Yeah, there's easements issues. There's a bunch of them. I kind of talked about that in our contract to closing class. You know, there's a bunch of red lights, I call them. You know, red lights like, okay, this needs to be addressed right now. So
yeah, it makes it easier for people when they're looking at that. And you said a little bit of there. It is some boring stuff when you think about, when you're sitting there talking about it. But it is the stuff that going through that boring stuff and having a closer sit there and actually walk you through what the title commitment is and what this stuff means, and making sure that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. Doing that stuff will save you so many headaches and angry nights in the future if something does get messed up.
Yeah, and, you know, I'm 34, not 24 anymore, right? So I used to love, like, you know, I was really energized, learning the business, and, you know, sit down with my friends and talk about title insurance like me and my dad used to talk about it at the dinner table. Like, you know, love learning it, you know, but now I'm married and my wife is a tattoo artist and nobody wants to hear about my job. I'll tell you that. You know what I mean? It's way more interesting, and, you know, I get frustrated about payoffs or money transferring. It's just, you know, it's just not as, you know, it's not glamorous, but it is what it is. But it's very important.
But it's one of those things that everybody needs it. And that's my goal with this channel, is to give everybody somebody that they can trust if they are moving this area. They have somebody that they can go to and say, hey, I don't understand this. Can you explain it to me? And that's one thing. When you came into our office and did your contracts for closings class, I picked up on it instantly. I was like, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about, and he's going to take great care of people. One more question, because then I know we'll hop out of here, is what is title insurance? What is it there for? Why do people need it?
Okay. I don't know if you remember this, but the easiest way to remember title insurance is imagine a world without it, right? So let's say that I have $100,000 and I saved a bunch of money and I want to go buy Dylan's house, right? So I say, okay, Dylan, I'm going to hand you this $100,000, right? And I want you to move out by the end of this month. Go ahead and take the money and go on your merry way. I move into your house, right? And 6 months later, a banker comes knocking on the door and says, hey, you haven't paid your mortgage. And I say, what do you mean? I paid Dylan. He should have paid off his mortgage. And he goes, well, he didn't. And then I'm just like, well, I'm not leaving this house, right? So imagine a world where there's no disinterested third party. There's no middleman to make sure the mortgage gets paid, make sure the tax get paid, make sure some transactional type things get paid the correct way. Imagine a world where it's not there. That's the best way. It'd be chaos. We're a utility of real estate. That's why I always tell people it's a utility. You know, even if, you know, you're selling for sale by owner and you find a buyer or something like that, you know, you're gonna 9 times out of 10 people don't have the cash just to turn around and buy something, right? They're gonna have to get a lender. The lender's gonna require title insurance, right? They're gonna require a contract. There's certain things they're gonna require in order for them to give money. So there's got to be a title insurance company, almost, you know, especially if there's a lender involved 99% of the time.
Yeah, and I would say in most deals, it's got to be about 100% of the time, because it's just crazy not to protect that asset. It's the biggest in most people's life. It's going to be the biggest asset that they buy. Make sure you protect it. Right. So real quick before we head out of here, give me your elevator pitch. Why should people use Heartland Title? Why, if they're looking for somebody that's really going to protect that asset, why should they use Heartland Title?
I kind of went into it when we first started, but you know, there are some companies that are corporate, right? There's some guys that got together and they had some cash, and we're going to buy up these title companies, right? We were made. We're sounds cliche, but we're American made. You know, my dad started when he was 45 years old, really old to start a business, I think, especially a title insurance company, and just kind of struck out and was being fearless with it, you know, and more and more of these mom and pop shops, I like to call, will sell out to these bigger title insurance companies and things like that. And I think the difference with us is, you know, that family owned and operated, right? You're having these other big title insurance companies right now lay off hundreds of people, literally 100, one I'm thinking about, because the market's going down, right? Correct. And I think there's something to be said for that. You know, of how we've stead and we've slowly grown our business, and you know, that's really extremely hard to do in the landscape that we're in. And I think that's a big difference maker. I think we stand for some entrepreneurship in Kansas and Missouri as far as that goes. There's a couple other ones. There's some good title companies out there, Platinum, Colfelt, guys that just started on their own, and more power to them as well.
And then you guys do one other thing that I think will be big for people that not everybody offers, or they have to pay extra. Talk about your mobile closings.
We've been in Kansas City about 2 years now. I just had one this morning in Grandview, Missouri. We're kind of doing free mobile closings right now, and I see that for the foreseeable future. I think that's where the business is going to go, especially as the market gets harder. You got to,
you got to be able to chase.
Well,
that
here I'm going to put you on the spot, Dylan. Why do people start a business?
Because they want to make more money.
No,
or they want to have control.
Solve people's problems, right?
True.
More problems you can solve, the better your company's going to be, and the money will come, right?
I definitely agree with that. That's what I try to do with everybody. That's why we're here.
Right, yeah.
Because the more problems that I can solve for people moving,
you knew the right answer.
You
knew the right answer is just that's the first one that comes to your head, because that's what. But you got to see it from a different way. And mobile closings is one way to solve a convenience problem for people. I think that will come around to the forefront. All these title companies with 20 title companies in Kansas City, they're crazy. Why don't you just get some vehicles and print off loan docs and go to people and make it convenient for them? That's what you're going to see, I think. So, that's our free mobile closing.
Awesome. Well, TJ, real quick, if somebody is looking to get, they're looking at buying a home and they don't have title company right now, and they're looking to get a hold of you guys, how would they get a hold of Heartland Title?
Well, you'd first have to tell your realtor. You heard this crazy dude on a podcast named TJ with Heartland Title, and I'd like to use him. 9 times out of 10, the average consumer that works at Mars Marketing Group or wherever they work at, they don't know what title insurance is. They buy a house maybe 2 or 3 times in their life. They know some couple awesome agents like Dylan. They're going to ask their agent,
Correct.
So if you hear this and you're a consumer, that's all you can really do. And, they might try to talk you out of it anyway. They're like, hey, I use this person. Okay, that's fine. That's how it normally works. So.
Yeah, and if you're an agent out there and you're listening to this, because I know we've got some agents that listen to these, if you're out there, I encourage you to sit down with TJ, bring him into your office, let him talk to you about his contracts for closing
class.
Did I say that correctly? Yes, contracts for closings class. It won't be a waste of your time. It is great knowledge, and there was a lot of things that were brought up that I even added to my contracts to make sure that I'm doing things right for any of my buyers or sellers. And
what's the first one that comes to mind on that?
The parcel IDs.
Oh, do you like that? Okay.
Yeah, because I'm big on making sure that the legal description is correct. But I've had a couple issues where the tax IDs don't match up and stuff like that. So figuring out what those parcel ID numbers are and putting legal description and parcel ID numbers in there, it's just double check things. Something that makes it easy. Right. I'm big on the marital status anyways, making sure that all those are in there. Everybody asks me, what's AMP mean? Well, married person or single person, and just making sure that everything is good. I went to school for auditing, so I'm a perfectionist. I'm a perfectionist as well. I get kickback sometimes, but that's mostly because sometimes I just don't think some things are that important. But I like to, before I even submit my stuff for review or anything, I want to make sure that everything's dotted and that stuff. So that's why I really took caught on to what you were saying and really liked what you were talking about in your contracts for closing class, because it just helps me be better for everybody else out there. And I encourage any agents out there, make sure you check out TJ.
Thank you, Dylan. Yeah, it's awesome, man.
I appreciate you coming out. Again, if this is your first time on the channel, make sure that you hit that follow button, hit the subscribe button, make sure that, and then that little bell so that you'll get future notifications of future interviews. That'll help. What we're going to do with this channel is give you an overview of what is out there in the neighborhoods in the Kansas City area. Also, make sure that we're giving you all the advice we can about real estate, and then bring new people on each and every week to give you a new person that can help you with your move to the Kansas City area. I'm Dylan Fry, the real estate guy. We got TJ Lorson with Heartland Title. Appreciate it, everybody.